Hey guys, welcome to this fun episode of TFL Talk. Today we are talking about what, Tommy?
We are talking about cars that have died in 2020.
Yep, the top 10 cars that COVID killed. Maybe not directly, but certainly indirectly. And get this, Tommy, we have a new YouTube channel.
We do?
Yeah, if you want to actually see the cars that we're talking about, let's say you're listening to this as the podcast, over at Apple or Spotify or somewhere, you can actually go over to our YouTube channel now, TFL Talk, and actually watch this podcast where you're going to be actually showing them the cars that we're talking about. So these are the top 10 cars that are recently deceased. Sit back and relax or keep driving if you're driving. TFL Talking Cars is on the air, the world's most popular car podcast. Okay, maybe not yet, but we're working on it. Let's start with number 10, Tommy.
Number 10 is the Alfa Romeo 4C Spider. Now, Alfa Romeo killed the hardtop version of this car a little while ago, but this is the two-door mid-engine sports car, and the Spider is now dead as well. So basically, they killed the Coupe, leaving the Spider to truck on as the 4C flag bearer, and now the Spider is dead as well.
You know how many sold this year?
Yes, there have been 71 sold this year. And keep in mind, we are recording this in August, so it is not a huge seller.
Yeah, like 10 a month, man.
Yeah, now the 4C starts at about $67,150. It's a very bespoke car, though, right? Because you're certainly not going to see a lot of them on the road.
Yeah, I mean, Alfa Romeo asked a question that apparently nobody else had asked, which is, who wants a Mazda Miata competitor for 3 times the price?
Well, yeah, that you're exactly right. I mean, it was a cool car, turbocharged, but a 4-cylinder, not the quickest car for the buck, not the best looking car for the buck, certainly not the most spacious vehicle.
Yeah, it had. I got to drive it a few times. It had a couple problems. First, there's no glove box, which is awkward. No cup holders, as I recall, at least nothing that I could use for any kind of American Cup. No trunk, and the convertible had this funky roll-up roof, which is also kind of weird. But the car oozed sex appeal. It's just a really curvaceous, sexy Alfa Romeo. It was a forbidden fruit for a long time. They had it in Europe. We didn't have it here in America. Then we got it in America, and then everybody just yawned and moved on to the next car they can't have.
I'm not so sure it's that good looking. I think the rear is really cool, but the front is a little bit Toad-like, if I'm being honest. It's, maybe you'll disagree with me in the comment section below, but it's definitely...
It's an Alfa Romeo, the storied Italian brand that directly led to Ferrari, right? Enzo Ferrari used to work at Alfa Romeo before he started Ferrari.
That's great, but look at that head unit. It doesn't even have an infotainment screen for $70,000.
Once again, it's a pure sports car.
All right.
That just oozes ciao bella, if that's the kind of remark I could make, because that's really what it's all about. Now, the one thing I will say about this car is it's got the classic ingredients for a collector car. You know why that is?
Because they don't sell any of them?
Yeah, because they didn't build a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they're Alfa Romeos. They're very expensive, and not a lot of them are made or sold. So if you guys have them, or if you want to get one, grab one and hold on to it for the next 20 or 30 years. I promise you this thing is going to go up in value. As a performance car, I drove it actually on an autocross.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. It's everything you want a sports car to be. It's loud. It's in a way obnoxious because it's not comfortable. It's raw, in your face, old school motoring. Maybe here in America, we want big old SUVs and crossovers that are tall, and you don't feel like you're going to get run over by the nearest semi truck. Which this thing, you sit about a pregnant ant's height away from the floor. So
some interesting specs about it.
Yeah.
It's like a 1.8 liter turbocharged 4.
Yeah.
237 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque. Alfa Romeo says 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds.
It's super light.
Yeah, because it's all carbon fiber. I remember that. That was really cool. I think the more I look at it, the cooler it is. I'm thinking if I have $67,000 to spend on such a
sports car,
yeah, sports
car, 3 Miatas.
Yeah, this car is such a dedicated, performance car. It'd be hard just to take it to the store. Dual clutch automatic transmission. I like how they have a separate section here on the website for turbocharger. as if that is such a new concept.
There's nothing close to it really outside of outside of like a Lotus, right? I mean, there's nothing really.
Yeah, the Elise was exactly like this. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's nothing that even comes close to what this car is. I mean, I'm joking about the Miata, right? But the Miata is a Rolls Royce compared to this thing. I mean, it actually has like an RF has a hardtop convertible. This thing, oh my God! All right, well, I think we've moved enough of the remaining Alfa Romeo 4C Spiders, hopefully, out the dealership floor. Let's go to number 9.
Yeah, number 9 is the Honda Civic Coupe and the current generation SI.
Tell me no.
Yeah,
don't make it so.
Honda is killing off the two-door coupe model of the Civic for this generation. It's worth noting this generation is getting a little old, but they're going to keep going with this model. But they are killing the coupe and the current generation Civic SI.
Dude, that's crazy. There's a Civic SI sitting outside of our offices. They just gave it to us for a long-term loaner, and now they're getting rid of it?
Well, they just picked it up.
Okay, well, there was one sitting 24 hours ago outside our offices. I'm bummed, dude, because I actually had a CRX SI. The SIs have always been, the performance variants of any of the Hondas. And I think the reason it actually went away, at least temporarily, right, is because of the Type R.
Yeah, it's a hard thing because the current Civic lineup is just so varied. There are so many options, and one of the best options is the Civic Sport, which has a little turbocharged engine. You can have it with manual transmission. Super fun car, but it's just too close to an SI for less money. And then the SI is just not a big enough performance step above the standard Civic.
Yeah, so if you wanted the sporty Civic, you can get the little turbo 1.5 liter, right, with the manual. Or if you wanted the uber conquering Civic, which, once again, forbidden fruit, we couldn't have for a long time, you go get yourself the Type R. And maybe since the kind of the spotlight is now on the Type R, no longer on the SI went bye-bye. The other thing that's sad about it only came, I believe, in a stick shift, right?
I mean, that's a good and a bad thing. As an enthusiast, you're like, yes, save the manual. But it's a hard thing to sell in the U.S., I think, as Dodge figured out with the Viper.
Now, we have done a bunch of reviews of these Civic SIs. I just drove it to Atlanta and back for a long road trip.
Right.
And for the most part, it was it was a good vehicle. There was a little bit of what we affectionately call rev hang. You want to tell them about that?
Basically, when you go to change gear, you slam your foot on that clutch pedal, and then the revs just stay at whatever you left them at, 4,000, for an uncomfortably long time before they start to decay, which means it's hard to shift quickly because if you're going from second to third, you're at 5,000 RPM in second, you go to third, and then you let off the clutch, and all of a sudden, it starts to jerk because the engine revs don't decay quick enough. That's always been a common complaint about this current generation Civic. Now let's talk about the Coupe, which is also dying.
I'm not surprised.
Great looking car, really a lot of value here, but
no headroom.
No headroom in the rear, exactly. Not a ton in the front, if we're being honest. And just like the Accord Coupe, it's going away. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, maybe there's just not a business case for it.
Look, the next one on our list, I think, is also a reason why these are going away. A lot of the manufacturers are just trimming down the huge amount of variation in their car lineup, right? It's getting a little too complicated. I remember once upon a time, we did the math, BMW had like 10 cars, and now they've got like 25 or maybe even more variants. And I think the same thing happened with the Civic. The Civic is just its own sub-brand almost, right? There's so many variations of it that maybe, what once was just a really fun and friendly and user-friendly let's call it economy car, which is what it was, right? Has now become this whole line of cars themselves. And let's kind of compare it to Tesla, because Tesla does that, right? Tesla does a really good job in keeping your choices down. And sometimes less choice makes for less stress.
I mean, I think Tesla doesn't do enough in terms of their options.
I don't want to talk about Tesla, but I'm just comparing, right? I mean, with Tesla, you get like 6 colors and 2 interiors.
Yeah, but that's a bummer, because they're all the same. I like that there's so many variations of Civic. I just think maybe there were, in this case, too many.
So I moved to the Czech Republic when I went from communist to capitalist. And, I went to the grocery store, and if you wanted milk, right, you were lucky to get milk.
Yeah.
It was just milk, and it was this like warm milk that was pasteurized and wasn't even refrigerated. But that was the only milk. So your choice was pretty straightforward, right? Here's the milk. You go to the store here, right? And there are how many different kinds of milks, not including the non-dairy ones, right? Almond milk, soy milk, and it just you look at that milk display, and you just stand there with your mouth open, completely like, I just want milk.
Well, let's go back to that example.
Okay.
You go back to the Czech Republic and communism.
Yeah.
You've got basically one car you can choose from, the Trabant.
It was horrible. Yeah, it was horrible.
You can buy your Trabant in puke green or faded blue. Those are
You have to wait
options.
10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So
look, these are like two extremes. So maybe there's a happy medium, right? And I'm saying Tesla might be the happy medium where you get two interiors and like 6 colors and 2 different performance options.
no, that's a disappointment.
Okay.
I want more options. Well, maybe
Well-
I like being a little unique. I don't like driving the same thing as your neighbor. And certainly...
So let's say that you have a coupe and your neighbor has, let's call it the hatchback, right?
Yeah.
You think that's that different? Like you're super unique because you've got the coupe?
If you
the
had
two-door?
if you had the hatchback sports and then your neighbor just had an LX or an
And the
EX
guy
or an
across the street has
EXL.
an SI, and then the guy across the street.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
The only one who's really unique is the Type R, let's face it.
Yeah, but I like having the variation in the options.
And you know who's really unique?
What?
The guy with the Alfa Romeo. That's the guy
Yeah,
in the
definitely
world of
unique.
Civics. That's a dude who's going to stand out.
Yeah, for sure.
You won't see that one driving down the road ever again. All right. I think we beat that elephant to death. How about number 8, Tommy?
Number 8 is the Mercedes-Benz SLC. It's a car... It's a car you probably,
Roadster.
you probably don't know about because they simply don't sell a lot of them. But the SLC is a replacement to the SLK,
Right.
which was the more affordable
Compressor.
two-door convertible.
Remember when that thing came out? Came out in this color called paprika.
That was a little C-Class hatchback.
Yeah.
That was the one that my grandma almost bought.
Yeah.
I don't know if the SLK had the paprika.
The paprika color?
So the SLC.
Basically came out during like the heyday of German roadsters, right? At that same time, you could get the Z3 from BMW, you could get the Audi TT, right? There was this like almost like an arms race among the Germans to build the coolest roadster. And of course, Mercedes also does the SL, right? Which is the car that goes all the way back to the Pagoda, and even before that, the
Gull Wings.
the Gull Wings. And so this has always been the little brother of that.
Yeah, and here in the U.S., the base engine was a 2-liter inline-4, started about $50,000. Like you said, it's got caught up in that same trend where Americans just aren't buying sports cars or sedans anymore.
Yeah, I've actually been looking at the first generation of the car. They're really affordable now. They're like you can get them for like under $10K all day long, and they're pretty cool. The problem with all these cars, Z3, even the SLC now, the TT, they got initially a reputation of being, and this is, I don't like being stereotypical, but this is a reputation, so I'm just stating a fact, the hairdresser car, right?
Yeah.
And I think what people meant by that back in the day was a vehicle that's a sporty car but a poser car, right? So it doesn't quite live up to the true sports car austerity of an Alfa Romeo 4C or the coolness of the SL. So it's kind of in this no man's land.
You know what the big issue with the first generation SL is?
What?
It looks like Dilbert sucking a lemon. So
The
it's
SL, not the SL.
no. You know what the biggest issue with the first generation SLK was?
There you go, yeah.
It looks like Dilbert sucking a lemon. So you
Okay.
got these two big eyes,
Yeah.
and then you've got like this awkward kind of grill that's kind of ovally. It's just not a very good looking car. The SLC Roadster, on the other hand, is a much better looking car, but yeah, it was a lot of money for the performance. It wasn't quite as fun as like the Boxster. It wasn't quite as usable as the TT, and now it is going away. There is a final edition for the 2019 SLC, but it was already on the chopping block, and you know, you might be able to say that COVID definitely made sure there wouldn't be another gen.
Who wants to drive a Roadster when there's COVID flying around? Right? What you want is that Tesla with the biodefense mode with that huge HEPA filter.
I think I'd be comfortable driving around in my sporty Mercedes convertible there, Dad.
All right, number 7 on our list is a car that keeps coming and going, right?
Yeah, it's the Lincoln Continental.
And look what we have behind here. That is a Lincoln Continental Mark V hood.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
Continental, believe it or not, died, and then it's back, and then it died again when it was reintroduced for 2020. So let's talk about the latest generation Continental. The old ones were land yachts. They were meant to compete with Cadillac and with the best of the best. It went away for a couple of decades, and then it came back as a four-door sedan, probably unsurprisingly. What did you think of the Lincoln Continental?
Well, the first one, right? I'm going to use a reference you probably don't remember, Entourage, which is an HBO series. That one, and I forget what year that was, like a '60s Lincoln Continental with suicide door, was like off the scale cool. That was just a badass car. And then, of course, ours, right, the 70s generation, just got kind of, American, fat, and lazy in some ways.
And then it got super sporty. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was kind of based off like the T-Bird, and then it got its own bespoke platform, and they had big V8s, and they got cool. And then, 90s? With in the Mark 7 and 8, they were like, okay, this is the end of it. Yeah,
and then the current one, the one that just killed off, unfortunately, in my mind, was too small. It had some unique features. So as I recall, it had its own engine power plant, right? The 3-liter EcoBoost, which was, there was a 2.7 in the F-150 and a 3.5 in the F-150, and then it had this 3-liter EcoBoost. It was also too small, Tommy. I was talking to a guy who drove limousines for a living, a livery guy, right?
Yep.
And he just hated the size of the thing. He said people want to stretch out in the back and you can't do it. He said if they wanted to get a Ford for their limousine, they'd get the Navigator, which is basically, a much bigger version of it. And it had this funky seat that reclined 800 different ways, right? Which you can still get. It's still in the Navigator. So it was almost like an origami, I would say, experiment, because you could fold that seat in the middle of the back, at the top of the back, at the lower part of the back. The side bolsters would move. It was incredible. And usually when a new car comes out, I always look for something that you can write a headline about, and that was the headline. And then, of course, they did do the suicide door one as a kind of a show car, and then they actually sold it.
But they did a few of those. That wasn't a mass-produced.
Right, it was a show car. Then but it sold out like that, though.
30
of them, 300,
60 of them. Was it that many?
I think it was I don't know.
I thought it was under 100.
The other thing I'm going to say is Ford has killed off all their cars, right?
Well, sure. Yeah, and
except for the Mustang.
The Continental was based on, here, I've got the Wikipedia page here, the CD4 platform, which if you poke around Wikipedia, you'll quickly find out is the same platform that is what the Fusion is based on.
Yeah, it was like a stretch Fusion.
Yeah, it was like a stretch Fusion. And the issue is the Continental nameplate is kind of like the premier Lincoln nameplate. When they brought it back, everybody expected it to be absolutely amazing. And it was a good car, but it wasn't amazing.
You know what it should have been?
What?
A shrunk F-250. They should have gone with that.
Yikes.
If a Continental isn't as big as a motorhome, dude, it's not a Continental.
I mean, it had cool door handles. The door handles were cool. And it had a nice heads-up display.
It was just too small. It didn't have enough road presence.
It was too expensive for what it was, and it wasn't...
Look, a Continental's got to roll into, the red carpet awards, right, and scream, look at me, whoever is in here is definitely the Oscar winner, and not kind of meekly, kind of slowly roll in and look like, you just rented something for the weekend. And that's the problem with the Continental. It just wasn't big enough, bold enough, fancy enough. And Ford has said they're killing off all their cars, so it makes sense for it to go away. And speaking of killing off all their cars, they killed off number 6.
Yeah, the Ford Fusion and Lincoln MKZ. Now, the MKZ really was basically a rebadged Fusion.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I did like the Fusion a lot, especially the sporty trims. They were really fun. You could get them in all-wheel drive, which was cool. Just an overall stylish car. There's nothing I can really say bad about the last Fusion, other than I'm sad that it's not coming back.
The Fusion and the MKZ, to my mind, are going to be like asterisks in a Wikipedia entry. They just, once again, weren't interesting or unique or fun enough. The Fusion, in fact, had something going for it that I don't think the MKZ had, and that was it was relatively a good-looking car. It looked like an Aston Martin in some ways, if you recall.
Yep.
I remember seeing it
was good.
when it first rolled out, when Ford still invited us to things, and I was like, holy cow, that is a good-looking car. But once again, we were at the Chicago Auto Show, Tommy. It was me, Andre, Nathan, and Ian, our videographer, and there was a snowstorm coming in, so we rented a car to drive home. Right, it's like a 14-hour drive, 1,000 miles from Chicago to Denver, and they gave us a Fusion. And you know what we figured out about the Fusion?
What?
It was way too frickin' small for 4 big guys.
Well, I mean, it was a mid-sized sedan. Would you have been any more comfortable in a Camry?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It was actually small on the mid-size sedan scale. It was really tight. Now, rumor has it that the Zephyr name will come back.
Yeah. So there might be a like a new Lincoln sedan, maybe even better than the Continental and the MKZ.
Yeah, because Ford has actually, Ford, Lincoln, they're synonymous, has gone back to using real names. Thank God, right? We have the Corsair, which is a cool name. We have the Navigator. We have now the Zephyr, hopefully, right? We have actually real names and not three-letter alphanumeric combinations. And I think that Ford, especially with Lincoln, is on the right track right now. So, the Navigator is just an incredible vehicle, and good riddance to both the Fusion and the MKZ. I have to say that the Ford Fusion Hybrid was okay. It wasn't bad. It actually got good fuel economy.
Well, I'm trying to remember. What was the fast one? Do you remember the?
Yeah, there was it was a Sport. The Fusion
was it
Sport.
The Fusion Sport?
Yeah.
Was that the one? I thought it had like quad exhaust. Maybe.
Yeah, that had I think it had the 6-cylinder. I remember doing a quick story on it. It was the one that everybody lusted after for about 10 minutes before they figured out that it wasn't all that fast.
It was fast. It was super fast.
It just they put a bigger engine, right?
It was like the muscle. I mean, it was basically a muscle car, right?
It was no Hellcat.
Yeah, but it was
that way.
It was a family sedan with a couple of turbos strapped to it.
Yeah, so is a Charger Hellcat.
Yeah, for sure. But the Charger Hellcat that is rear-wheel drive is not going to work in Colorado for 9 months out of the year.
Oh, the other distinction
3 months out of the year.
The Ford Fusion had was it could come in all-wheel drive. So it was actually, I think, one of, at that time, only 2 cars in the mid-size sedan segment that could be had in all-wheel drive. The other one, of course, being what?
The Legacy.
Exactly. Very good. The Subaru Legacy. That was the only other mid-size sedan out of like 13 that could come in all-wheel drive. Now, of course, the Camry comes in all-wheel drive.
Yeah, and so does the Altima.
Yeah, it's become a thing.
Yep. All right, should we go into number 5?
Yeah, number 5 is a car I'm very sad to see go because I'm a big fan of small, compact cars, and this is one of the best.
Yeah, it's the Honda Fit. So the Honda Fit is
very well, Honda.
Yeah, it's going away. Sales have kind of tanked on the poor little Fit. And there's no new generation coming as far as I know. So if you want your Fit, better buy one now because this may be one of the last Fits you're going to be able to buy here in the U.S.
So your grandma has a first generation Fit, the Sport Fit with the big kind of air dam and that kind of really cool coppery orange color. Mm-hmm. That's a really cool car.
Yeah, the first was really cool. Great car. It's called the Jazz, by the way.
Right, in Europe, yeah, of course.
And then the first Fit died, and it was replaced by the second Fit, which was kind of a blob. And then the newest Fit is actually really good. So they went back to kind of the sporty driving dynamics. Super fun car to drive. It's got all sorts of space-saving features, like the seats that will fold back.
Yeah, so you can put a bike in there.
Yeah, it just is a really thoughtful car, pretty efficient, 6-speed manual transmission available, so it can be really fun to drive as well. I love the little Fit, but
you know what? The next 3 cars on this list have the same problem, right? And that is they are so freaking boring.
They're not boring.
Oh my god,
the Fit is not boring.
Oh, they're just like the first Fit Sport that your grandpa has actually still with the lowered fascia was cool. It was fun. It actually had paddle shifters, right? Remember, it had paddle shifters. She never uses them.
The new one has paddle shifters.
Right?
That you can still go out and buy.
But it needs like 200 horsepower. It needs to be slammed.
Look, I have
a big old carbon fiber spoiler. Maybe those little like teeth that they put on the Evo. Either do that or lift it, right, and make it into a badass off-roader.
I'm going to blow your bubble right now.
All right.
You can still buy a Fit Sport with the body kit in orange. You can still buy your exact car
with like 98 horsepower.
Yeah, hers is like 97.
Yeah.
What's your point?
Because hers, okay, I haven't driven this latest Fit. I've driven the last 2 generations. Hers is actually fun to drive.
Oh, this one's way better.
I disagree.
It's more fun to drive.
The last generation was just
last generation was not fun, but the current generation super fun to drive. But quirky colors, you can get reds and blues and oranges. Yeah, I love the Fit. And the next car is just as fun.
Look, dude, I think people want cars with character. Look at the Bronco Sport. It's off the scale. People just want vehicles that are expression of who they are, and they don't want bland and boring cars like this next one with a horrible name.
What's wrong with Yaris?
Yaris. It's like yard or yarn. Let's go sow some yarn in the yard and then drive a Yaris. I mean,
It's been fine for 15 years. Nobody cares about the name.
You know what it should be called?
What?
Tiger Shrimp.
This is such a cool looking car.
Tiger Shrimp. Now that's a cool name. The Toyota Tiger Shrimp.
You are terrible at names, Dan.
The TTS. Look at that. The Toyota Tiger Shrimp.
I think Audi's going to have issues with you calling it the TTS.
What? Audi? Toyota?
No, but Audi.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They wish it was a TTS.
The current Yaris is a really cool car. I think it looks great. It's basically a Mazda 2 underneath. You can get it in both sedan and hatchbacks forms. I don't know how you think this is boring. It's fun to drive. It's pretty zippy. It's very affordable. It's incredibly reliable. What is wrong with the Yaris? What's wrong with the Yaris is nobody's buying small cars or cars at all. That's what's wrong with the Yaris. But as a car...
People are buying Jeep Renegades. Because
that's
it's
not
cool.
a car. Renegade is cool.
It's fun. It's unique. It's different. Yeah, sure, it's not a Wrangler, but nevertheless, it has a lot of character, dude. Really.
I would argue that the Yaris...
People are buying Polaris slingshots, which are these, three-wheeled Batmobile things that cost as much as these three cars we're about to discuss, and yet they're buying them because they make a statement, right?
Yes, but Dad, no one's crushing a Yaris with a slingshot. So someone with the Yaris has kids and needs a reliable car to get to work.
Someone with the Yaris is a college grad who has no money.
Yeah.
That's not a family-friendly car.
I love the Yaris. It's got a manual transmission. It's super fun to drive. The Mazda 2 is brilliant. I'm sad they don't rebrand it as a Mazda 2 here anymore. Great. Look, $15,650. Manual transmission in red. Zippy little engine. Look, what else do you need?
I love hot hatches, and if it were me, the one that I buy,
what?
The Volkswagen Up GTI.
Yeah, that's not sold here.
Right, but why not? Why is Volkswagen?
You think a Lincoln Continental is too small, and yet the Volkswagen Up GTI?
Because they're different categories. For the category that the Lincoln is too small, for this category, an Up GTI would be badass.
It's even smaller than the Yaris.
Look, I used to have a CRX. I love tiny little cars.
So you'd like the Yaris?
You know which one actually I like better than the Yaris?
What
was that three-seater Toyota called? That was unique and fun.
The IA, the Scion.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
I think it was IA, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't the IA.
I think it was.
No, it was not the IA. That's a four-seater.
Oh, that was a four-seater.
That was a rebranded Mazda.
What was the tiny thing called?
It was called something with S, wasn't it?
IQ.
Yeah. No, was it IQ?
IQ, yeah.
Okay. All right, something with
that. That was a terrible car. Talk about a little garbage disposal.
I actually enjoyed reviewing that and driving it because it was different, and I think it was in its own way cool.
Yeah, it's different in the same way that,
Not the Aston Martin version of it.
No, I know. It's different in the same way buying a pet alligator is different. Yes, it's interesting, but it's not exactly great. No, I love the Yaris. And the next car on our list...
You're at some bar somewhere, and you walk up to a young lady, right?
Yep.
And she asks you, what pet do you have? And you say, I've got let's say a toy poodle, right? She turns around and walks away. You say, I've got a pet alligator? She's gonna want to know more.
And then the next day she'd be on the news, because that's what people with pet alligators end up doing to people they pick up at bars.
It's got character.
So the next vehicle on our list, also in the similar class, is the Chevrolet Sonic.
Yeah.
Another brilliant car, super fun to drive. Do you remember the turbocharged engine?
I loved the Sonic that was slammed by GM and that was hot rodded. I thought that was so badass and cool. But yet the Sonic itself is just another boring economy car.
It's got a 1.4 liter turbo. It's literally your Up. It's a better, bigger, more usable Up, basically, that you can buy in the U.S.
I think the Volkswagen fans out there would highly disagree with that, Tommy. Characterizing the Chevy Sonic as an Up, but go for it.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's better than an Up. I don't think it is. But the old one was available with the manual transmission. Super fun to drive. You can still buy the RS trim in some pretty interesting colors. Bright oranges, bright blues. It's not a great car, but
that was a car
okay.
that was just left on the vine, right? They didn't improve it.
Yeah.
It just kind of lingered, and it became kind of the car that when you go to the Chevy dealership and you don't have a boatload of cash and you have to take out a big loan, right? That the dealer could get you into. It wasn't the car that people would be like, oh man, I want to go to the Chevy dealership and buy a Sonic. Unfortunately.
Well, so people like you basically then. I've killed the hatchback, the small hatchback. I
love hatchbacks.
You said you would rather have a Renegade than a Yaris.
I would, because there's no cool hatchbacks right now.
All three of these
have really cool. They get a Peugeot. They get all these really cool, badass
all
hatchbacks.
Three of these are better cars.
Hot hatches. They get all these cool. We don't get.
All three of these cars.
All right, let me ask you this: What forget these three, put everything on the table. What if you had to go get a small economy hatch? What would you get?
Yeah, a Yaris or a Fit.
Really?
Well, because, like I was saying, all three of these cars are better to drive every day than your Renegade. The Renegade is fine, but it's not great to drive. It's got a super buzzy and coarse engine. You drove it in Florida. You didn't like it in Florida very much when we had it as a tester.
They're much better to drive until it snows or rains.
Yeah, I agree. In the snow or the rain, yeah, these are not useful. But if I live someplace where it didn't snow or rain, I would much rather have one of these snow or rain. Yeah. Well, who needs all-wheel drive in the rain?
Just don't go in the sand.
How bad are you driving in the rain where you need all-wheel drive?
A Renegade doesn't really compete with these, right?
No, of course not.
I mean,
that
competes with
let's take a
cross-track XP.
What's a lifted Yaris, basically? The CHR.
Oh, my God.
The Yaris is better than the CHR. It looks better than the CHR. It's cheaper than the CHR. Same thing with the Fit. I would rather have a Fit over an HRV.
Okay. All right. What's number 2 on our list?
Number 2 is the Honda Clarity EV. Now, the Honda Clarity is a striking-looking vehicle available in a bunch of different powertrain options.
Yeah, like, you know, when I first saw it, I thought to myself, this is what it would look like if if Buick designed a car in the 80s.
What's a little harsh? I mean,
it's not the best looking car.
It looks like a doorstop, but I don't know if it looks like some of the stuff that Buick was designing.
It's got these weird side skirts, right?
Yeah.
When I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this car, because look, it comes in 3 flavors, right? And the one that's going away is the EV.
Right, so there's the plug-in hybrid, the fuel cell, which is super cool.
Yeah, which is cool. I love the fuel cell. I actually don't mind the plug-in hybrid. But the problem, of course, with the EV is that it has 89 miles of range and a $36,000 price tag.
Which is just useless.
Yeah, which would have been fine like back in 2010 when the Leaf was coming out with a 70-mile range, right? But now, so I don't know what happened, what Honda was thinking when they came out with a car, but I did drive all 3 of these. The fuel cell is the one I would definitely get. To be honest, as you can tell, I'm not in love with the styling, but then none of the current hydrogen cars are exactly stunners, right?
Right.
They're all like, at prom, they'd be, all the kids at the science experiment desk, doing the science work, not the kids, doing the cheerleading at the football game, right? These are kind of geeky looking cars, and the styling kind of suggested what they need is like a really like what they need, like an Alfa Romeo 4C that runs on hydrogen.
I think that'd be cool. Yeah, the Clarity doesn't make a lot of sense, but the plug-in hybrid is still a pretty decent value. And then if you live in California, maybe you could do the fuel cell as well. Well,
and it's also, I mean, you got a picture up, right? Mm-hmm. It's also hard, and for me, to wrap my mind around the fact that the same company that does, for instance, right, the NSX, did the Clarity. It looks like 2 different, like not just companies and not just designers, but completely different planets designed both those cars, and yet they're the same company. It's really weird.
All right, should we go into number 1?
Do you disagree?
No, I have nothing else interesting to say about the Clarity EV.
All right, number 1 is a car I love that you hate. Actually, there are 2 cars.
I don't hate it. I think one of them is really cool.
All right, you think that which one you think is cool? You're going to say the Regal is cool.
Yeah, it's the Regal and the Regal TourX.
Yeah, so I got a chance to drive. Well, we had both, right? The TourX, I really fell in love with. It's basically a rebadged Opel, and of course, when GM sold Opel to PSA, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, that was pretty much the death knell for rebadging Opels. So both these cars were going away because they're European design. But the TourX was actually not only a sexy-looking European style, or is a sexy-looking European-style station wagon, but it has a pretty clever all-wheel drive system, one that actually is able to have real torque vectoring. So there are 2 kinds of torque vectoring, as you know, right, Tommy? There's torque vectoring by braking, where if, you got 2 wheels and one is in loose gravel and the other one has traction. The way that you send the power via an open diff to the one that has traction is by braking the one that is loose, right? So you hit the brakes on one side, the power goes to the other side. This actually is able to send power to whichever wheel has traction, not by braking, but by actually allocating in a mechanical way power to that wheel, and that's a much better form of traction.
GM still uses that system in a bunch of other cars, though.
Yeah, they do.
I mean,
it works.
It's the twin clutch all-wheel drive. I like the TourX a lot. My issue is, like, I wish they wouldn't have kind of tried to make it off-roady, because it's in this weird segment now where it's not quite an off-roady crossover, but it's not as sleek as it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a European Autobahn cruiser when it was designed, right?
Right. Like, for example, the Regal Sportback or, like, the Regal GS. Now, those are some sleek-looking cars, which I'll be sad to see go away.
Now, Buick killed the larger LaCrosse last year, which means that they have no cars right now. It's all crossovers.
Yeah, and the GS, especially the Regal GS, was truly a great car. Really cool to look at. Really sporty to drive. Love the... really like the GS. The Crosstour was cool, too. I just wish they hadn't kind of made it so dinky.
I would buy both
looking.
of those cars. Wait 5 years. Wait till they're under like $10K, maybe. And then get the TourX and actually put some more aggressive tires on it, see if you can do a lift on it, and then take it off-road. And then take the Regal and, tune it, right, because they're turbocharged.
Yep.
And, see how fast it is down the drag strip. Both are really cool cars, and, these are cars that I think if, we make it through all this COVID stuff 10 years from now or 5 years from now, we buy and point back to and say, these are cars you should have bought when they were new.
I don't really understand the Buick lineup. I've never been to the Buick website, to be honest. So you have the Encore, I understand what that is. The Encore GX, which is based on the Trailblazer. Regal TourX, you know what that is.
Yep.
Envision, I think that's their Chinese-built crossover. Enclave, then something called the Enclave Avenir. And then in the Avenir line, there's also the Regal Avenir. So I gotta brush up on my Buick homework. I feel like Buick has kind of been flying under the radar recently.
Well, so when GM cut a lot of their brands, people got really upset. Like when Pontiac went away, right?
Right.
Saab went away. Scion went away, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, not Scion. What was it? What was the GM's version of Scion?
GM's version... Saturn.
Saturn, sorry. Yeah, Saturn went away. I was really sad to see some of those go, and then Buick stuck around. But the reason Buick stuck around was because Buick has become, I guess, and you could probably tell me more if you actually live there, kind of a status symbol in China. And so Buick was like printing cash in China. People wanted Buicks, and so GM kept Buick out of all those. And yet it didn't really fit, I don't think, that well into the needs of American consumers.
Yeah, I think you're right. And maybe,
they tried to make the best of it.
Maybe they're still selling like hotcakes in China. So maybe these cars will stick around in China, but maybe they're dying in the U.S. So I don't know what the story is on that.
Yeah. So maybe we can get somebody from GM to shed some light on where Buick is going, even though I doubt that they're going to tell us much. And of course, as always, this being TFL, we'd like to do a bonus. And so what's the bonus, Tommy?
The bonus is the Honda Accord. Now, of course, the Honda Accord isn't going anywhere because they sell so many hundreds of thousands of them every year. But the Accord manual is not coming back. So there will be no Accord manual in the 2021 model.
That is very sad.
It is very sad. It was maybe the only midsize sedan available with the manual, but it was... maybe is a 6 available? Is Mazda 6 available?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, the
you know what? We have a story on TFLcar.com. We just published it and updated it that tells you all the cars that are available with the manual. If you do a quick search, you could probably find that answer because we update that, and unfortunately, that list keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter. But yeah, most midsize sedans do not come with a manual transmission, and so it was cool that and actually, you got to give big props to Honda. For sticking with the manual. I got to tell you, I was just driving one of our manuals back home last night, and I was trying to kind of think about why I love driving a manual so much, and I think it's because you just have so much more control over the vehicle, right? The modern cars now basically are going to the point where you're just a passenger, even though you're the driver, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with the manual, you're the one in control. You're the one not just telling it how fast to go, how hard to brake, but also when to engage what gear. You can skip gears. You can downshift. You can use it to brake going down steep grades, right? You can use it to, if you want to get scoot into a hole in traffic, you can quickly downshift and do that. It's just really a fun and engaging way. It's like man or woman with machine versus machine, and you're just kind of there for the ride.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the Accord is a great car, too. I mean, driving dynamics-wise, it's super engaging, super nice to drive, and it was even better when you could pair that with a 6-speed manual. Short throws to one of our very first videographer had an Accord manual, maybe, 7 years ago. And it was super, super great. But, unfortunately, it's not coming back for 2021.
Right. If I had to ask you, if you could only buy one car on this list,
yep,
which one would it be?
The Honda Fit.
Really?
I really like the Fit, and I'm sad it is going away.
I would buy the Alfa 4C Spider, but of course it's crazy expensive, so let's take that out of maybe one of the reasons people are buying it. 2-seater for $70,000. So the one I would definitely buy is a TourX. I just love the looks of it. I thought it was a really cool station wagon that is no longer.
Yeah, as are so many other wagons.
Yeah, what's left wagon-wise? Volvo's
doing a ton of them.
That's all, right? The
Renault,
B70 and the...
No, Mercedes still does the E-Wagon.
Yeah. Mercedes does an AMG wagon, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the E-Class.
Yeah, that's a pretty badass. That'd be the wagon I think I would buy. Does BMW still do a wagon?
I don't know. I don't think BMW does a wagon.
Do you think they got rid of all their wagons?
I don't think Cadillac does one anymore.
No, the CTS-V was my last lustful wagon that I actually got to drive and thought to myself, how cool is this? And those things, they sold like 400 of them, and they're super valuable now.
I don't think I'm missing any. Are there any others that we're missing? I'm sure the comments will tell us.
I mean, look, if you guys are listening to this in Europe, you still get a lot of wagons. If you listen to it in a lot of different places, like, there's a Honda Accord wagon in Europe. We just don't get wagons.
Sport wagon?
Sportwagen.
But that just died too, didn't it?
Yeah, I think Passat, that was in our last list. I think that went away too.
You know who still does wagons? Audi.
That went away. Yeah, Audi does an A6,
yep.
Right? That's a new wagon.
Apparently there's an A6 all-road coming. Did you see that? That's cool.
Soft road, yeah.
Yeah, and the A4 all-road.
Yep.
Yep, so that's still around.
Yep.
I think that's pretty much it.
So if we've forgotten any, let us know in the comments, Tommy. And as always, let's bid a fond and farewell to the 2020 cars that may now rest in peace. Sad but true.
Yep.
Are there any new cars that are coming that we can talk about? I like to do this list the opposite way.
I don't know. Maybe that'll be next week's podcast.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. And remember, if you actually are listening to this in places like Apple or Spotify and you want to see pictures of these cars, we have a new YouTube channel called TFL Talk. Another one, where we actually overlay the video that Tommy was doing on top of this one so you can see pictures of these cars. So it's not just, talk, but it's also a little bit of visual. So check out tflcar.com for what, Tommy?
News, views, and real-world reviews.
Thank you for spending another, almost 45 minutes with us. See you guys next time. Ciao.